Years I've been going to different churches, and you could see if you go out of the church building after the service, there are different groups or different cliques getting together. Some may be well dressed, some may be driving expensive cars, some may be business people, some may be into fashion, and some may be into not having money. But they all cling to each other, and you see how church basically is divided into different fractions outside of the building. In the building, they're all the same, and outside, all of a sudden, they're all getting together with their own group. And these groups rarely intermingle with each other. And I've noticed that in any country of the world that I've been at, so it's not unique to the United States or to Ukraine or to the former Soviet Union, or to Germany or anywhere else. It's all the same all over the world, unfortunately. And it's sad to see that some people behave in such a way. So partiality is one of those things that still continues among Christians. And of course, issues of discrimination or viewing somebody who is from a different ethnic background or different racial background, from different linguistic background, and so on and so forth. People always judge. I know from my personal experience, when I was hired by one of the churches, 5 church members quit going to that church because I was from the former Soviet Union. So automatically they labeled me as a communist. I haven't been a communist in a day in my life. 2 of my grandparents were killed by communists, but because I was from that part of the world, all of a sudden I was associated with a whole mentality of a communist regime. And nobody bothered to ask me questions and to identify whether I did belong to them or not. They just would go to church because of their internal mindset. Greek philosopher Seneca writes that the people of the high society in Greece would want to distinguish themselves by wearing numerous golden rings on each finger of their hand, except for middle one. I don't know why, but that's what he's writing. In fact, they would borrow fingers from other rich members of the society and wear them on certain occasions to impress their friends or maybe somebody that they try to develop business relationship with, to show that they are of a higher status of the society. Even in the church, rings were not uncommon. Church Father Clement of Alexandria, in his letter, recommended Christians to wear only 1 ring on the pinky finger, and the ring should have had some sort of religious emblem, a dove, a fish, or an anchor. And it was justified in that time by the fact that such a ring could be used as a signet ring or a seal. It wasn't for a jewelry purposes. It was something that will identify them or classify them as a Christian. So maybe somebody in the crowd would identify them as a Christian, let's say in the marketplace or somewhere else. Because Christians were not a popular sect or popular religion at that time, and it was in fact persecuted. Now in verse 5, James continues, "Listen, my dear brothers, did not God choose the poor of the world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him?" Look at the contrast. He says that God chose the poor to be rich in faith and also to be heirs of the kingdom that he has promised to those who love him. So he automatically says that poor people love me, therefore they're going to be heirs of the kingdom, and they are rich in faith. Remember when Jesus preached his first sermons? They were in synagogues, in a closed walled building. And what was the reaction of those sermons? People rejected him because they were the ones who were very religious. They knew it all. They didn't want to hear anything new. As soon as Jesus goes out from the synagogue, preaches on the hillsides, on the mountain hills, thousands and thousands of people listen to his message, accept his message, and rejoice, and they follow Jesus. They are the poor people. They are the ones who are open. Their hearts are open, their minds are open. They are the ones who are willing to accept what Jesus what Jesus taught and preached. But the rich were trusting mostly in their possessions. Look at the contrast between the poor people who were promised a lot and the rich people who were, in the scriptures, demanded a lot from. Poor people flooded the church, and yet the rich young ruler walked away from Jesus because he did not want to sell his possessions, distribute it to the poor, and follow him. His possessions were more important than life with Jesus or eternal life afterwards. What do we do, or what did people do in those congregations that show the partiality or favoritism to the rich? In verse 6, James says, "But you have dishonored the poor. Are not the rich exploiting you, and they themselves dragging you into courts? Do they themselves not blaspheme the good name of the one to whom you belong?" In the old days, poor people could not exist without patronage of a richer person, a master, let's say, or a business person who would either hire daily workers or have their servants working for them. They were all dependent on the people who had money. In the same way, when they had to borrow money, they would go and borrow money from somebody, and they would pay high interest rates on returning that money. Today, we are owned by corporations. Back in the day, we knew that the Rockefeller owns certain corporations. We knew that this person owned it. Today, these names are obscured so that you cannot have individual being attacked by the poor people. No, it's all under corporations or banking system. The banks are the ones that are coming to take away your house if you're late on your payment. The banks are coming away to take away your car and this and that and the other. So we're still being oppressed by the system of those who have more than the rest of us. In those days, the creditors could actually grab somebody on the street without any kind of a court session or court order. They can grab somebody on the street and drag them to the court and force them into prison. And for the rest of their lives, they will be sitting in prison, working and paying off the money that they have borrowed. And sometimes their entire families will be sold into slavery just to pay off the debts that they incurred. And these are the rich people that some of the ministers or some of the congregational members were trying to honor in their churches. That was disgrace, even before God. In James's society, rich people were abusing the poor. They grabbed them, dragged them to courts. And by these actions, if they were coming to church, they were in a way doing what? Blaspheming the name of the Lord. Because they were not showing what to the other people? They were not showing mercy. They were judgmental. They were looking for justice, which is probably a rightful thing to do. But if you have justice without mercy, you don't know God, and you don't know His plan. You don't have the love of God, and you don't understand His love. However, he says, if you carry out the royal law, according to the scriptures, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. You are doing well. But if you show partiality, you commit sin, and thus are convicted by the law as transgressors. Notice, one of the commandments of the 10 commandments is called the royal law. Why? And this commandment is, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Why is it called a royal law? Well, there could be several reasons. It could be called that because a law of the highest quality is presented here. A law given by the King of Kings, or the law ruling over all the other laws, or the law making one a king over himself. Because if you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you have fulfilled the law towards your neighbor. Now the other great commandment states what? Love the Lord your God with all your might, with all your heart, with all your might. Verse 10, for whoever keeps the whole law, 613 commandments, but stumbles in one point only, has become guilty of all of it. So please do know, this is one of the golden commandments. Jesus summarized the entire 10 commandments of Moses into two main that we have just mentioned. But there were always 613 laws in the law of Moses. So if you kept 612, but you made a mistake in one, you were guilty against the entire system of the law, and that by itself made you a sinner. Remember, Sister Karen was telling us who have ever lied or did this and did that. Of course, I don't recall any of that. But for the rest of you, that's a daily reality of life. I mean, we're all human. We all do that because we possess a sinful nature. So any one of these things, if we have ever done it at age of 1 or 91, maybe we kept the law entirely until the age of 90 and a half, but at 91 we said something nasty to our neighbor. We broke the entire law, we destroyed our entire life. If our life was based on abiding by the law of Moses, we ruined it all. Because the law is a perfect standard of sinlessness and righteousness. We cannot abide by the law. You think it's hard? No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Don't even try it. The law is there to compare our life to it. It's like the mirror, like we discussed last time. A mirror into which we look and we see our reflection, we see our imperfections that we need to work on. But the law as a standard does not show us the mercy and grace that God shows us when He sends His Son Jesus to die for us and to accept us as His sons and daughters, regardless of how much we make, how much we have, and what we do in life. So in a way, James continues his discussion and he says, for the one who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. Now, if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So in a way, I am not doing this and I'm not doing that. Hooray! I'm a winner. And then you just, and I don't have a pride. Hooray, but I'm not a proud member of a Christian society. You have just committed a sin of pride. You said or thought about it. And you became guilty of everything. And notice, partiality, seemingly not a big deal, but look with what sins James compares that. Either murder or adultery. The two biggest things in the Jewish society. If you murder someone, this is a murder, that's it. You go to prison. Who ever went to prison for partiality? I don't recall anybody, right? And yet James compares that sin with as serious of the sins as he just mentioned. For judgment is murder. Hold on, I went too far ahead. 2:12. Thus speak and thus act as those who are going to be judged by the law of liberty. So, in a way, he says, not only speak that you consider everybody equal, but act that way. Because sometimes we speak and we say, yes, this is politically incorrect and that and the other, but we act in the exact same way as these people acted in this church. So, what does it make us if we do commit the sin of partiality? Verse 13. For the judgment is merciless to the one who has not practiced mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. In a way, when we elevate some people and lower others by doing so, we show partiality which lacks mercy. And even if you go to the court today